History remembers emperors for their victories. Augustus established Rome's first empire. Trajan conquered Dacia. Marcus Aurelius defeated the Germanic tribes. But one emperor stands out above the others, not for his battles, but for his burning desire for power and gold: Nero. His name alone echoes with tyranny and terror through history. In this episode, we are going to uncover the secrets of the most infamous emperor Rome ever had, from his humble beginnings to his tragic end. We will reveal how he unleashed hell on earth by starting one of the worst fires in ancient history, murdered his own mother, Agrippina the Younger, and persecuted the early Christians, branding them as the scapegoats for the disaster. Let's dive into the life of the man who made Rome burn. 5. A ruthless beginning. The story of Nero Claudius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, better known as just Nero, began in 37 AD. He was born into the Julio-Claudian dynasty, an imperial line that had ruled Rome since Augustus. His father was Gnaeus Domitius Ahenobarbus, and his mother was the infamous Julia Agrippina Minor, who was a renowned beauty and a shrewd manipulator. From his father, Nero inherited a prestigious patrician family with influential connections. From his mother, he learned the art of manipulating people and the hunger for power. Growing up, Nero was exposed to the best education Rome had to offer. He studied rhetoric, philosophy, and even learned to play the lyre. Although his tutors failed to instill good character in him, instead, they only succeeded in fanning the flames of his arrogance and cruelty. Nero was a spoiled child who grew up to become a spoiled teenager, then a young adult, and finally a monster of an emperor. At the age of 13, he tortured and killed a slave just for fun. It was a preview of the fate that awaited many during his reign. Despite his dark side, Nero also showed signs of charm, intelligence, and charisma. This created a complex and dangerous personality, one that could captivate and terrify at the same time. Unfortunately, Nero's human side never won over his evil side, and when he ascended to the throne at the age of 17, Rome had no idea what was about to hit it. 4. The Great Fire. When Nero became emperor, he inherited a stable and prosperous Rome. The Julio-Claudians had done a good job ruling the empire, and there was peace throughout the provinces. However, what Nero lacked in experience, he made up for in ambition. He wanted to be remembered as a great ruler, but he had no idea how to achieve that. One day, while visiting Greece, Nero decided to burn Athens to the ground, believing that if he could recreate the city, he could prove his magnificence. But Nero never finished his project because fate had something else planned for him. In the summer of 64 AD, a fire broke out in Rome, and within 5 days, it had spread to 5 of the 7 hills, destroying over 20% of the city. 18 of Rome's 140 neighborhoods were burnt to ashes, leaving 100,000 people homeless. People blamed the Christians, and the rumor claimed that they used the catacombs as a place to stash oil and torches. But other historians believe that the fire was an accident caused by an overturned lamp in a wooden house. Or maybe it was a plot by Nero to get rid of his mother. There is no evidence to support either theory, but what we do know is that Nero took advantage of the tragedy to promote himself as a benevolent leader. He offered free grain and wine to the poor, organized gladiator games and athletic competitions, and rebuilt Rome with grander and wider streets. Although these actions won him some popularity, they also emptied Rome's treasury. Nero's spending left the empire in debt, and the burden fell on the shoulders of the Roman people. 3. The persecution of early Christians. When Nero needed someone to blame for the fire, he didn't have to look far. The Christians became the scapegoats of Rome. These followers of a Jewish preacher named Jesus Christ were an easy target. They were a small group of people who had no political power or military force to defend themselves. So Nero ordered that they be tortured and killed. This was the first major persecution of Christians, and it lasted until the fire was forgotten and the public's attention shifted to other matters. Christians were arrested and taken to the emperor's court, where they were forced to confess their beliefs. If they refused to renounce their faith and worship the Roman gods, they were sentenced to death. Some were crucified, others burned alive, and many were thrown into the Colosseum to be torn apart by wild beasts. The accounts of these persecutions were recorded by Roman historians like Tacitus and Suetonius, who described the Christians as being hated for their strange customs and criminal activities. But other historians argue that the persecution of Christians was not based on any real evidence of their involvement in the fire, but rather on the fact that they were an easy target. This is supported by the fact that the Christians were not persecuted continuously, but only when Nero needed a distraction from his own problems. 2. Nero's Golden Palace. After the Great Fire, Nero began to rebuild Rome in his own image. He designed a new layout for the city, complete with wide avenues, luxurious buildings, and a huge amphitheater. But his favorite project was his personal residence, the Domus Aurea, or Golden House. It was a massive complex that covered 300 acres in the center of Rome. Inside, there were gardens, fountains, statues, paintings, and priceless works of art. The Domus Aurea was a testament to Nero's love for luxury and excess, and it was also a symbol of his detachment from reality. While the rest of Rome was still recovering from the fire, Nero was living in a golden palace. This did not sit well with the people of Rome, who saw the emperor's wealth as a mockery of their own poverty. Many historians agree that Nero's construction projects were a major factor in the decline of the empire. To pay for the expenses, Nero raised taxes and cut back on public services. He also devalued the currency, which led to inflation and economic instability. Moreover, Nero's obsession with luxury and power corrupted the Roman elite and turned the Senate into a puppet body. This would have a profound impact on the future of Rome. 1. The fall and death of a monster. As Nero's madness grew, so did his paranoia. He began to see enemies everywhere, and he responded by purging anyone he suspected of plotting against him. His list of victims included members of the Praetorian Guard, the Senate, and even his own family. In 68 AD, Nero's mother, Agrippina, tried to persuade him to marry a senator's daughter and get rid of his wife, Poppaea Sabina. When Nero refused, Agrippina was accused of adultery and was given a poisoned cup of wine. Later that year, Nero's wife died, and he married a former slave named Sporus. This only fueled the hatred of the people against him. By 69 AD, the situation had become unbearable. The army revolted and declared Nero a public enemy. Fearing for his life, Nero fled to the countryside, but he was betrayed by one of his freed slaves and brought back to Rome. There he was forced to kill himself at the age of 30. This marked the end of the Julio-Claudian dynasty and the beginning of the Flavian dynasty under the rule of Vespasian. After Nero's death, the people of Rome were eager to forget about him and his atrocities. But his memory lived on through the writings of the Romans. Historians like Suetonius, Tacitus, and Cassius Dio recorded every detail of his life, from his rise to power to his fall from grace. They portrayed Nero as a tyrant, a madman, and a monster. But other historians argue that Nero was not as bad as he is made out to be. Instead, they paint a picture of a troubled young man who was pushed to the edge by his advisors and his circumstances. Nero's legacy is a reminder of the dangers of unchecked power, the importance of balancing wealth with responsibility, and the consequences of letting ambition get the better of us. Even after 2 millennia, his name still evokes fear and revulsion. So remember the tale of Nero, the monster who made Rome burn, for it is a story that continues to shape our world today. And if you want to learn more about the forgotten history of Rome, stay tuned for more echoes of the past.